Hello and welcome to the Rangelands Natural Resource Management Alejandro Carillo webinar. My name is Sarah Jeffrey and I am Rangelands NRM Regional Agriculture Landcare Facilitator and Project Manager. I acknowledge Aboriginal people as the traditional owners of the lands and waters where we work and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and future leaders. Thank you all for being here. This webinar is supported by Rangelands NRM through funding from the Australian Government's National Landcare Program. It is great to see so many people online from all over the world, and a very warm welcome to our guest speaker, Alejandro. For those outside of Western Australia, the Rangelands of Western Australia covers an area of approximately 220 million hectares. So it's this bit here. So this is where we are. Which is about 85% of Western Australia. Okay, our offices are based in Broome, which is up here, in Jongra, which is about here. There's Carnarvon in there somewhere, about here. Actually, it's probably up here a bit, and in Perth. The region is generally characterised by low rainfall with an arid to semi-arid climate, with some tropical and subtropical climates in the far north. Most of the rangelands is flat to undulating, with vegetation ranging from tussock grasslands and shrublands to woodlands and also patches of monsoonal forests in the north. Now it is with great pleasure that I pass over to Alejandro, who is a fourth generation Chihuahuan Desert rancher in northern Mexico. Through adaptive land management, Alejandro is changing the way he manages his ranch. He ranches in a similar His ranch is in a similar region to the Western Australia rangelands, in that it is characterised by a brittle and arid landscape that experiences frequent and ongoing droughts. We look forward to listening to your story. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks for all the team to organize this webinar, and hope that the information that I will share with you today is going to be useful for your the participants. Let me share the screen. Thank you very much. Let's start with this presentation. Thanks for all the sponsors. Just to give you an idea of where we are located, we're in the northern Mexico, not too far from the border with the US. We're located in the Chihuahuan Desert, which is the largest desert in North America. That's where you see the red dot. That's where we're located. We're about 100 miles from the Texas border in the US. And I want to give you some context. So we're in the high desert. The lowest elevation is about 1,000 meters. I think I did good for the metric system. And our summers reach 38 Celsius, and the winters, we have had so far this winter about 20 days of minus 10 Celsius. So they are really very extreme temperatures. And 85% of the rain falls in 3 months. And we get an average of up to 250. It's very rare for us to get more than 250 millimeters per year. And all the presentation you're gonna see today is just native grasslands. We have no irrigation at the ranch. So when we think about the Chihuahuan Desert, that's actually the typical view of the Chihuahuan Desert. I mean, all bare ground, a little bit of woody plants, and people having to bring feed to their livestock because there's no grass. I mean, this is the typical view of a winter in the Chihuahuan, or the non-growing season in the Chihuahuan Desert. Now, there are some places like this picture where you can see grasses. I mean, those are grasses, but it's almost like a monoculture of a perennial grass. What I don't like about that picture, and this is pretty common view across the whole Chihuahuan Desert, is that all the grass is oxidized. So just keep in mind that people talk a lot about the act of overgrazing, which is maybe killing the plants, certain plants, because the cows stay too long, or cows or livestock stay too long in one place. But the situation that we're facing right now is that there's so very little livestock on the ranches that the grasses are also dying because of the lack of animal impact. In this case, the picture you're seeing is all oxidized grass, and that grass is actually sick, is dying as well. So this is a typical temperature. I translate that to Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius on the surface. This is in the middle of summer. So think about what all the life experiences, including ourselves, with that temperature. So it's so important for us to have the soil covered year round, because otherwise it becomes pretty much difficult to live on. And this is a picture of our ranch, Las Damas Ranch. We have a mountain range. We have flat, we have hills, and that's one of the days we got some rain. And this other picture, which wasn't really this year, was like 2 years ago, we got decent snow as well. And this is our rainfall pattern. If you see, we get all the rain mostly in 3 months, which we call the monsoon season, which is July, August, and September. So all our management actually only counts on those 3 months. I mean, if it rains or if it doesn't rain on the rest of the 9 months, then we gotta do it. I mean, we have to thrive under those conditions. There was a time when I was a kid that it used to rain in winter, and then we have better springs, but not anymore. So the thing is that our management has to allow to take our cattle with whatever rain stop, let's say in October, all the way through August. And you may say, well, yeah, but you get the rain in July. Yeah, the point is that it doesn't rain grass. You gotta wait a little bit for the grass to grow. So our planning is at least for 10 months of grass. And I have to tell you that unfortunately, the precipitation, this is data that we got from a satellite data, remote sensing. Particularly in my ranch, a friend of mine just gave me that data, which is pretty much in sync with my rain gauges. And if you see, this goes 40 plus years, which is how long we have owned the ranch. And I was kind of curious to say, well, what's going on here? If I'm only getting 10 inches, why the average here is 11 inches? So I realized that on the first 20 years, we were getting 12 inches, and now the last 20 years, we only got 10 inches. That's why we average 11 inches. And that's the reality in most of the Western US and the Northern Mexico, that we're getting less and less rain. So the good news is that we're actually increasing and extending the green season, which is very important for us for more than one reason. And one of the reasons is we don't have to supplement our cattle if we can have some green during the whole year. And also, we need that photosynthesis going on in order for us to feed what we call the microherd, which is, in this particular case, we're very interested on feeding the mycorrhiza fungi. Why? Because they are the ones creating the aggregates, and they are the ones making the soil more with air, so we can infiltrate more water. And this is the same remote sensing that a friend of mine gave me for Las Damas Ranch, which is our ranch. And you can see, even though we're getting less rain every year, the photosynthesis and the number of green dots is increasing, which is really the great thing about this kind of grazing management. To give you a little bit of more information about the ranch, we have a ranch of 12,000 hectares, which, as I was telling you, is a mountain range and hills and flats. And we're running 600 cows and about 400 sheep now. And our average rainfall is 230 millimeters, going downwards, unfortunately, but. And the only thing we provide with our cows is sea salt. And we have not used any chemical or mechanical or seeding or burning or subsidies to restore native grasslands. Sometimes we joke in Mexico saying, you know, we don't need the government help as long as they allow us to work. And the tools we have is obviously holistic management, which sometimes we call it rational grazing. I mean, and not to confuse with rotational grazing. Rational means like a thinking process. And one of the things we have been able to do is when we started working at the ranch, we needed 80 hectares per cow, and now we only need 20 hectares per cow. And last year that we got good rains, I think we are about almost 10 to 15 hectares per cow. So, you know, at times when you are with this management, actually, I don't see growing grass as a big challenge, but actually keeping with that grass. And then for you to keep up with the grass, then you need a good water system that is going to be ahead of the grass. So you can add more livestock. So this is a typical view of the Chihuahuan Desert. You know, we work with some conservationists. They're getting really good results. There was a time where for example, in this particular case, the bird organizations were fighting the ranchers. But now with this kind of management, we're creating the habitat for many birds. Most of them are migratory birds coming from Canada and the US, and they spend the winter in the Chihuahuan Desert, which is a more mild temperature during winter. Kind of the interesting thing is that the thought is that you have this encroachment of woody plants, then the grass is not going to grow. But I think we prove otherwise, like you can see on the following picture. I mean, it's not exactly the same spot, but you see the same woody plant, and the grass really didn't care about the woody plant. So all of our management is actually focused on what we want, and what we want is more perennial, a diverse set of perennial grasses. We don't care about the woody plants. We don't spray the woody plants. We don't spray the toxic weeds or things like that. The grass really has become very aggressive. That is killing a lot of that stuff or suppressing. I included this picture because this picture was taken 10 years ago in winter at my ranch. He's my foreman. And you see how bad we were. I mean, we'd have a lot of bare ground, a little bit of oxidized grass. So that was really not enough for the cows. We were feeding the cows at least for 6 months. And nowadays, that's how the ranch look like in winter. So the color of the grass really tells you a story. I mean, I would like to see yellow and a little bit of green instead of all that gray oxidized grass. And I want to share with you some of the comparing a few pictures of the ranch and ranches nearby. On the right side, you can see the ranch in summer, and then nearby property on the left. So it's not only having the biomass, counting the biomass that you have, but we really need to look beyond that and see what is the quality of that biomass. And it's all about management. Remember, there's no irrigation here. It's just the management we use that actually make the grass much more healthier. This is another picture of a neighbor in the south of me. So the inner part is a spring at my ranch, and the outer side is a neighboring ranch. So you see in the spring, after let's say 7, 8 months with no rain, the grasses are actually greening up. While on the other side, they're just dead. Why? Because the lack of animal impact. This picture is on the same spot as the previous picture. And on the right side is my ranch. On the left side is still a neighboring ranch. And you see, I can produce much more forage than the neighbor. And so people may say, well, yeah, but perhaps you have less livestock than or cattle than your neighbor. You know, at that, I'm running about 4 times more cattle than the neighbor. So really, we kind of get very into, oh my God, you have to lower the numbers or things like that. But reality is really how you manage your livestock that is going to determine how much forage you can produce. This is a video to show you actually a place that we graze and a place that we just are grazing. Just a comparison of how it looks like. Now, how much forage we take out of it is determined by the herd. I mean, as simple as that. The cows' behavior and how full they are and how they behave, it tells us if we're doing a good job or not, if we have to open up more, or we have to, or we can actually get a higher densities with smaller paddocks. It's all, I mean, we determine that pretty much every day, but also by experience. And that's why I tell people, you know, this is science, but this is also a lot of art on doing things. So the cows really give us a lot of feedback on how we're doing. That this particular grass was pretty good grass, so we can take a lot out of it. And there are other areas at the ranch that we're still in the transition where we have mostly annual grasses that the cows are going to leave behind much more residual, much more grass, standing grass. I like this picture because, you know, these 2 pictures were taken on the same time, same precipitation, the same area, different management, and it's the same kind of grass. That's what is so impressive. The right side is our ranch. This is winter. The left side is a property nearby. If you see how our management have changed the form of the grass, like the right side has a lot of leafy grass, a lot of leaves. I mean, the leaf to stem ratio is much higher than on the left side. Now you ask me, which one is going to feed better the cows? Which one is going to feed better the wildlife? Which one is going to feed better the microbiology? I mean, the micro herd. Remember, we need to have a photosynthesis to feed the micro herd, the microbiology. So the more leaves you have, the bigger your solar panel, and the better it's going to be. The more population underground you're going to be able to feed, and the more water you're going to be able to infiltrate. And on the same day, we take this picture as well. You know, the right side, again, is my grass. The left side is grass from a nearby property. So both grasses are the same. They are the tobosa grass. It's a pretty common grass in the Chihuahuan Desert. But the thing here is that the tobosa, when it's not well managed like the one in the left side, it behaves like an annual grass. Why do I say that? Because that tobosa is sick because of lack of animal impact. It has a lot of oxidized material. The roots are very shallow. And it's dying. I mean, that's the conclusion of this. I mean, I was able to pull that grass with my hands, and on the grass on the right side, which was from my property, I will never be able to pull that grass from because of the much deeper root system. Now, talking about natural succession, which, remember, folks, our times are not always the same as nature times. So we need to be patient on this. This is one of the few pictures that we have taken on the same spot at the ranch. So this actually represents like a 6-year period. And the reference is on the back, what we call the elephant butte, which I'm trying to mark there for you. So here the message is you cannot go from bare ground to perennial grasses. You have to actually wait for the natural succession, which is bare ground and then some weeds and forbs, and then some weed forms and annuals, and then you're going to start seeing some perennial grasses. So some people get concerned about saying, oh, I got this weed that is not good. Well, it's part of the process, because remember, the weeds are actually trying to build the soil for better things to come. Same for the annuals. Now, can we force the cows to all that is coming up? Well, no, but the most important thing that you're going to be seeing on this succession is what you don't see, which is the root system that is going to be left behind. A lot of weeds that we still have in our grasslands, the cows may probably eat some of them, but they trample a lot of them. So you got like a double benefit of the root system that is going to stay there of the weed, but also all the trampling and all the litter that is going to be left behind. And when it rains, all that litter becomes feed for the soil. So this was in summer 2015. You see some bare ground, a little bit of weeds. And then 3 years after, then you see a better ground cover, but mostly with weeds. And then 3 years later, in 2021, now you see the grass taking over. I mean, it's difficult in this picture to tell you which is perennial and which is annual, but there's a combination of both. And usually you're going to have both, but I think perennials are going to dominate eventually your grasslands if we do proper grazing. Now remember that our grazing, just to give you a little bit of background on that, when I joined the ranch, my dad has like 6 pastures on the whole 12,000 hectares. And then we moved to 55 pastures, permanent fence. And then we liked what we saw, but then we reached a plateau and then we start going downwards. And then I say, well, and then we were grazing 3 or 4 times per year. I think that was detrimental in my context. We saw very little rain in a very just specific season. So we moved then later on to 350 permanent 1-wire electric fence. And that was like 6 years ago. And that's when we start seeing the real changes of the ranch. When we intensify the grazing, obviously, because the more paddocks you have, the more intensive grazing is. And also to start getting longer rest periods. Why are we so in favor of longer rest periods? Because you will allow all the plants to express themselves. So instead of, and see, when we started back in 2006, when we took the first holistic management training, we only have like 3 or 4 species of perennial grasses. Now we can count more than 50 perennial grasses. And that's why we love long rest periods, because it allows you to have more diversity. Now, we've been talking about the animal impact and all the tools that comes with the livestock, sheep or goats or cattle, and so on. And, the tools are like the hooves and the saliva and the manure and the urine and even the act of breathing as well. But there's something more than that, and I'm going to show you that. And perhaps we're getting more rain, but we're also very focused on fixing the water cycle, because if the water cycle is broken, then not much is going to happen. So this is an infiltration ring that we use, and this is within the ranch. So don't think that the whole ranch is like a pure solid grasslands. We still have some spots with bare ground, but we're patient. We keep working. So on the test that we did on the left side, on the right side, we've been working more intensively grazing, and we were able to measure like at 18 inches per hour. We don't even get 9, but well, that's fine. We can get the 9 infiltrated. On the left side, we only are able to infiltrate 2 inches. So think about for a moment, because, you know, sometimes we talk to people, we had the opportunity to travel to other countries and actually to United Nations conventions. And I approached a delegate from Germany, and they said, no, we don't want to hear about that because, you know, to produce a kilo of beef takes a lot of liters of water. But we have to think holistically, because just the fact that we are able to increase the infiltration rate by 16 inches, which is the difference between these two tests, and we extrapolate or multiply that by the total acreage of the ranch, we would be able to meet the water needs 100,000 people for a full year. So that's why we need to think holistically, because we're providing a lot of great services. So, well, the previous picture really tells you about the effective rainfall. And think about it, folks. In our area, let's say we get 10 inches of rain. Most ranchers are only infiltrating about 40%. So if instead of them getting the 10 inches, they're only getting 4. That's why we're always in drought mode. That's why it's so important to work towards having more perennial grasses and to have green year-round. Because remember, the mycorrhizal fungi, which creates the glue, which creates the spaces in the soil, which allow us to infiltrate more water, that changes every 30 days. So if our green just stays for 3 months, then what happened to the rest of the months? Our soils get compacted again. So it does work in summer, and in this particular picture that you're seeing, it does work in winter. I got this picture from a friend of mine who said, Alejandro, so what's going on here? I took this picture, the left one in summer, and then the right side of the fence is properly managed. You know, it has grass and everything. And the left side is bare ground. And then in winter, he took another picture, and it happened that the snow was on the side of the bare ground. So the point here is that when you have skin in the soil.
Sorry, Chris, can you just mute yourself, please?
When you have skin in the soil, then the temperatures in the soil are going to be more consistent. So you will be able to capture more snow because of the grasses, but also the snow is going to melt much faster. And that's why we're seeing that in the picture. It's kind of a rare picture, but that's the way it works. So you ended up capturing also more snow. So I like this quote from Masanobu. I don't know if you have read him, but he says that it was in an American desert that I suddenly realized that rain doesn't fall from the heavens. It comes from the ground. So it's all about the vegetation that we have on the ground. And this is not particularly in my ranch, but it's a property nearby where, you know, you may say, yeah, that was the perfect timing because the property on the left is under good grazing management and the one on the right is continuous grazing. And it happened to be raining on the left side. Well, let me tell you something. We are getting a little bit more rain in most of the ranches that are practicing holistic management, applying regen principles. What is that? Well, you know, we've been watching the videos from Walter Jenny, one of your countrymen, a biologist, and he tells us that 60% of the rain we get comes from the sea, and the other 40% is created inland thanks to the vegetation. So this actually is something, because also something you need to know is that there's a lot of ranchers doing this holistic management in the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. And we have, not that we have like scientific data, but we're experiencing more rain, not only exactly in our ranches, but also neighboring ranches. So this is really very exciting. We not only having more effective rainfall, but we're also getting more light rains. And obviously, the having skin or armor in the soil is very important to control the temperatures. This 45 Celsius was taken in the spring at kind of early in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. On the same day, that was a property nearby mine. And then once we get into my property, we measure again the temperature, and it was even later during the day, and it was a 20-degree difference. So it's amazing how we can protect all the little moisture that we get. Fires. Oh my God, we have a lot of issues with fires. For one thing, there was a time where you have a thunder and then a lightning, and then you were going to have rain after that. The problem is the dry storms that we're having nowadays, where you have the thunder or lightning, but you don't have the rain. And that is the whole thing. Now, I was shared with this study from the NASA that they finally link how the moisture affects the fire susceptibility. So even in forests where there's bare ground under the forest, they're going to be more susceptible to fires than a forest that have grasslands. I think we have overprotected the trees and underprotected the grasslands. Not sure if some of you have watched the permafrost. There was a TV series called 60 Minutes in the US, where they had this permafrost program there, where these scientists in Siberia, in Russia, they explained that the permafrost is melting because of the lack of grasslands. I mean, and it's a big forest, but they're lacking the grass. The grasslands are really great plants to insulate the soil. Here is a study that I was mentioning. So it kind of correlates the drier, the less the moisture, the more probability of a fire occurring. So I don't know about you folks, but we used to spend a lot of time fighting nature at the ranch. We fight these noxious plants, we fight the mesquites, we fight the woody plants, the encroachment of woody plants. We fight everything, and we spend a lot of time. I think my recommendation is we should work for what we want and not to work for what we don't want. Think about this, the brush encroachment. We have, for example, this creosote, which is a pretty common woody plant in the desert, and it's being killed by the grasslands. Do we pretend to kill this? No, we just work for what we want. And now they are going away. And it's not the only one going away. We have other woody plants like the cat's claw that is also dying at the ranch and other ranches with similar management. You have a different one here, the tar bush is dying as well. It's dying among the grass. And the mesquite, which is a more common woody plant there. See, all these small mesquites are dying among the grass. You know how much money is spent for example, in the US, trying to kill the mesquite? We're talking about the millions of dollars. And now even the large mesquites are dying. I mean, they just cannot support. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but it could be that we're changing the fungi to bacteria ratio, or we're retaining more moisture. The thing that I know is that nature sends those mesquites trying to cover the soil because we were actually overgrazing and overresting our grasses. And nature is always trying to cover the soil with something and to keep the photosynthesis going. Now, how about the soil engineers? I call the soil engineers the insects, and I'm gonna talk to you about the particular ones. Just for you to keep in mind, one of the first insects to come to help us is the ants. The ants. Yeah, you're gonna have plenty of ants if you have pretty degraded soil. But as you fix the soil and fix the and start growing grasses, the ants are just gonna go away. I mean, they're gonna be there, but not as on big numbers. Usually when we go to a ranch, we look at the cow pies. I mean, are the cow pies in good shape? I think that's in a good shape of a cow pie. Really, that cow pie that you're seeing now was dropped in summer, but now this picture was taken in winter. My only concern about that cow pie is that it wasn't integrated into the soil. It wasn't put into the soil by the dung beetles. So I want to be honest with you. And when I see this, I tell the ranchers, you know, I think you're just getting half of the benefit of what you're doing. Because that cow pie is supposed to be on the soil, not on top of the soil. I mean, it got oxidized and then we lose the benefit of the manure. This is a picture taken in my ranch. See, that's the kind of activity we want to see in our cow pies. If you go to my ranch and we got some rains and also we got the warm weather, in 3 days, you're not gonna see any cow pie left. This is the work of the dung beetles. And this is a side view of the work of the dung beetles. And that's why you see that we have like this, it's part of that why you see these pictures that are like the dark green and on properties nearby, they are not really that green because I think we give credit to the dung beetles to do this excellent work. It's not only that they put all the manure into the soil, but also they take a lot of soil out of, I mean, they put a lot of soil out, they move a lot of soil. And now another indicator is when you start seeing more species of dung beetles. We have hundreds of dung beetles, even native ones. I know some of our dung beetles come from Africa through Australia to America because I have read about it. But we also have a lot of native ones. For example, the gazella went from Africa to Australia and then to America. And that's a great dung beetle that we have. So they actually take about 66% of the cow pie into the soil, and they could reduce the fly population up to 90%. Think about that. So that's a cow pie that was work by the dung beetles, and on the next season, you're creating a microclimate, a very microclimate of where the cow pie was. And you know, I was at the Metropolitan Museum in New York like 3 months ago, and it grabbed my attention that there was an exposition of the Egyptians, and they actually, for them it was key, the dung beetles, 6,000 years of agriculture, and they had that, give that importance to dung beetles. So that was the same exposition with all kind of jewelry or dung beetles from the Egyptians. And now it comes the termites. That's another soil engineer. Obviously, you don't want to see termites in your house, but for us are so important on the rangeland. It's just amazing. Whatever work was not done by the dung beetles, these termites are going to finish it up. And something we kind of observe at the ranch is remember the mesquite that was dying. You see the picture there on the upper left. Then we realized that some branches, before it was actually completely dead because it was dying because the grasses were taking over, the branches were falling down. So we realized that there was a beetle, not a dung beetle, but like a pruner beetle that was pruning the branches. So the branches fall down, and then the termites came into play, putting those branches into the soil. So we were wondering, well, if the mesquite is a legume, then who's going to put the nitrogen? So we read about the termites, and we realized that the termites have the richest nitrogen fixed bacteria of all the insects. So that's how nature kind of replace one thing for the other. We just need to let nature take over and not to kill these insects. Even the oxidized grass is being taken over by the termites. It's pretty amazing. I mean, in nature, nothing gets wasted. As I explained to you folks, the ranch has different landscape, like the Sierra or the mountain range. And thus we use different techniques there to regenerate that broken land. We use herding and fencing, all portable fencing. So for example, those little white dots are cattle. And that spot would be very difficult to fence, too much work. So what we do there is just to place the cattle there so we can graze that spot. So we use horses at the ranch to place cattle in canyons and places difficult to reach with the fence. But we also use polywire on the portable electric fence in some spots at the mountain range, like this one, this spot, which is mostly rock, but we want to take advantage of every spot at the ranch. And people get pretty creative, my people, like this is a corner post that, well, this is a yucca, or we call it palms, desert palms, or in the US they call it yuccas. And it provides good insulation. So you actually have to take advantage of whatever you have out there. Another very important part is the livestock, the livestock genetics. I mean, think about it. If you don't select for what is adapted to your place, and let me ask you a question that, well, you may not answer right now, but what determines how big your pasture is going to be or how often you move? I think most of the decisions we make are based on the bottom of our herd. Like, let's say that I look at 100 cows, but then, being as like former predators, we look at the probably 5 worst cows. And if I go and I say, well, am I doing a good job? Well, yeah, all the cows look good. Yeah, but there are like, let's say 10 cows are not doing good. Well, then I need to open up more, or I need to move faster so they have better, given the same acreage or hectares, or I need to open up more or give it more acreage so I can get those 10s up to the other ones. Well, that is why it's so important for you to keep your herd clean. That's why we call it clean, because we're always calling the bottom. Always, I mean, how much we call at the bottom based on body condition or hair coat or a dinky calf and so on. But that depends on each of us. I mean, I have friends who call like 30%, 20%, 10%. The thing is that when we're going to move our cows or our livestock, because our herds have cattle and also saddle horses we're not using, and mares, and also donkeys, and also sheep. But sheep are not exactly in the same spot. They're just around the cattle and goats. And we cannot play 2 hats there. I mean, the first one is before we actually open the gate, we look at the bottom of the herd. We're not looking against like a 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 body condition book. We're just looking within the herd. What are the ones that are not doing that well? And then we pull them out of the herd, and then we put it into a nice large pasture where they can select, and then they get back on track and we sell them. It's just a one-way thing. It's not that we're trying to get him in shape and get him back to the herd. So we're careful on what we're calling, but we are at the same time, we just call them. And then after that, because we don't just want to go and just open the gate, because then you kind of create a habit for the cows to see you and then just run to the gate. Usually, they gather around the gate, but they're laying down. And that's a good sign, when you go and move your cows, a good sign, a good indicator is that some of them are laying down, ruminating, and they're calm. They are calm because that means that they're full. Remember, this is an art, it's not perfect. But then we change hats, and then we now are the shepherds. So the cows follow us to the next paddock once we selected the cows that need to go. And that's why we try to keep our herd in good shape. Because remember, most of the decisions taken are taken based on the poor performance of the herd.
Alejandro, 10 minutes left of the presentation.
Okie dokie, thank you. So just give you a few examples of comparing, like this is the same herd. This was given to me by a friend of mine, this picture. He's comparing two cows, even visually you can see, you can even guess which one is going to be open and which one is going to be pregnant. Not that we have a specific preference for any breed, it's just in any breed you will have differences. And now it's up to you as the owner to select which ones are thriving based on your resources and which ones have to go. Obviously, in this case, we favor the left one and the right one. If it is the worst one or the bottom on the percentage you decide, then it has to go. This is a good example of a nice Hereford cow. So I'm telling you, there's in any breed, there's good individuals and bad individuals. And this, for example, this particular Hereford cow is in a closed herd of 1,000 cows, and it's been closed for 60 years. And that's a result. This is in a ranch in another state in Mexico, in Coahuila. And that is the result of a great selection, keep calling the bottom. And obviously, we also promote the good genetics from good cows and a good calf that looks and behaves like a little bull. And then we leave our own bulls. Most of the bulls we use are home raised. And this is an example also of adaptation at the ranch. The cows really learn how to eat the prickly pear cactus, and we don't really need to burn the spines. They just scratch it in the soil, against the soil, and then just eat them. That's how some of those cactus ended up. Now, our recommendation for you folks, because we did it opposite to this. Try, if you're going to start on this or you're already on your way, work first on your best areas. I did it the other way and it really cost me a lot. Because, as humans, we try to fix what is broken and we don't want to see bare ground. But in reality, that investment doesn't make any sense. I think we need to invest our time and money first on the best areas of the ranch. So I think you think this is in a great shape, but once you start working on this grazing management, you're gonna see that instead of you having 5 perennial grasses, then you're gonna have 50 perennial grasses. And then you gradually are gonna move to the more unproductive, bare, degraded, more expensive to develop, and more remote areas. So this is the boundaries of the ranch, and this is how we prioritize our areas, going from the green all the way to the yellow and then the red. The red are the most difficult or the most costly and the most remote. and probably the most degraded. And the green areas are like our bottoms, where you're going to be much easier to fence, and it will give us faster results. We want you to see results on the next growing season, not in 5 years. And our goal still to grow these kind of grasses that many people did not believe that we could grow these 2-meter tall grasses, native grasses, because remember, we haven't seeded anything. It just, we have created the condition for the grasses to germinate. And now we're seeing the expansion of these grasses, which is kind of excited. Now that we're going to be using miniature cows, we want the tall grasses with the same cows. This is my dad. You may be wondering, well, what is your dad has to do about all this stuff, you know? When my dad asked me to join the ranch, he was 70 years old. And one thing that I clearly remember is when one of my mentors went to the ranch and he said, Alejandro, this is great. I mean, you can have more cows here, you can have more grass, but you haven't thought about something. And I say, Jesus, what is that? This is going to give more years of life to your dad. And I took this picture last week. We were branding, and he is so excited as he was 20 years ago. More examples. I'm going to go quickly because I think we're running out of time. Other examples within our state of Chihuahua. In some occasions where we have really a lot of bare ground and we have to start up the process, we do. Some people call it biocarpeting. We call it also bale grazing. And you can see how you're tracting the cows with bales and then do it on strips. Then you have these weeds and annuals on the next season, growing season or rainy season. Obviously, you need to follow up on that. Otherwise, you're gonna go back again to bare ground. And this is a very, very nice example of another friend of mine in Chihuahua who worked with these miners. And the miner really wanted to give something back to the native people, and they put a layer of soil there because it was just gravel. There was just rocks, and they started using livestock to make animal impact with some. They actually put some seed because there was no seed there, native seeds on the feeds, on the feeder, and then some actually bales as well. That part of Chihuahua is kind of a high country, so that's where it does snow every year. You can see the impact on the next growing season. Then top view of the place, which is pretty impressive. So you can see that the cows really are, this kind of management really solves a lot of different issues. And just to finish, kind of a commercial, we're selling these solar donkeys if anyone is interested. Now, reality is that, it's just amazing what the kind of things people do. Like this particular ranch doesn't have roads where it needs to take the solar energizer, and this guy is taking it on top of a donkey. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I am going to hand it over to questions now. I don't know, Karen, if you want to clarify. You've got 1 day grazing approximately across 355 paddocks.
Oh yes. When we started, we started moving like every 2 weeks, and then we go to once a week, and then we moved to every 3 days. Then a friend of mine, who actually was one of the group that we traveled together. He said, you know, I'm moving daily and it's a big difference. And, you know, obviously, if you want to move daily, you need to have the paddocks for that. But before you actually having to have the paddocks, you have to have the water, which is actually most important, the drinking water for the cows. So now, you know, last year we got good rains. So remember that we have 350, let's say 250 permanent electric fence paddocks, but they can be subdivided with polywire. So really depends on the rains and how, on where you are at the ranch. Where if we right now nowadays we're moving twice a day. So rarely we move once a day, but mostly twice a day. So with the polywire, we size the paddock for half a day. And depending, you know, if it is very thick in grass, then it will be a very small paddock. Probably you're talking about 200 cows per hectare. That's the most density we use. We don't use like 1 million or 500,000 or, I mean, well, in pounds, right? Or 500. We go up to 250, the most 300 cows per acre.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sarah. Alejandro, thank you very much for your presentation. Yeah, look, I am dealing with the idea of bunching cattle and having animal impact and the notion of water, and essentially trying to understand how we can effectively provide water given the long range between, you know, might be 5 to 10 kilometres away from the nearest current water point. How have you dealt with that across your 12,000 hectares?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. The it's a continuous improvement because, you know, we thought that when we had 55 pastures, we were done on the 2-inch. And then we moved to the, we did not move like in 1 year from 55 to 350 permanent electric fence paddocks. We moved like well, it really didn't take that long because, you know, once you had the water, we had like a 55 drinkers or troughs across the ranch, but mostly at the bottom on our most productive area. So I think my recommendation there is for you to look at the most productive areas and then try to develop the water there. Even if we go to a ranch where they have a spring, a creek, or something that is much affordable to develop, then start there. And then obviously we rely on wells because, you know, whatever creek used to be there, spring is gone. And we rely on wells and we rely on pipe. But the challenge that we have right now is we're growing so much grass that now we need to move, and we're moving some of our main lines from 2 to 3 inches. It's everything by gravity, but I don't discard that in the future it may be a pressurized line. Because right now with a good year of 10 inches of rain the last year, we have grass probably for twice as much cattle that we have. But I mean, I understand it's the most expensive process in the ranch, but also I know the benefit. I have some friends of mine who do everything portable. Now they're putting, see, I have a friend of mine in the state of Chihuahua as well, he told me, you know, Alex, I was having like 8 paddocks share for 1 drinker. And when I put a portable drinker for every 4 paddocks, I increase the vegetation or the biomass by twice as much. So really having water close by is critical, but you will not have permanent water. I think we will end up having portable water if we want to have many. And that's why it's so important to have a good design on your water system so you can add more eventually, whatever you want, add more water points or troughs or drinkers. Or pipeline is underground, is buried, because or the hot weather and the cold weather. But I think it's a matter of prioritizing your investments and then get a faster return on investment and then keep going from there.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe has, I think your question has been answered. Do you use mobile waters? I think you said that. And her other comment was, we have these at AD, by the way, if people want to know what Tom has made. So keep that in mind, everyone. The other question is from Angus, how many staff on your ranch?
Oh yeah, I see the question. We have the foreman, we have a cowboy, and we have a shepherd. I mean, or sheep go wherever the plan is, and the sheep determine what is the plan. So they go wherever they want to go. So yeah, so we have 3 full-time. And then, you know, sometimes when we need to build fences or something, then we can bring contract. We can hire people, but we can handle the ranch with 3 people. I think, you know, and that question has been asked to me, like by clients saying, okay, Alejandro, you tell me how many cows a cowboy can handle. And, you know, my answer in my context where we don't have springs or creeks or rivers, something like that, and everything relies on a water infrastructure with drinkers, with floating devices, for loading valves and with pipeline. It really depends on how robust and how good is your water system. Because otherwise your people are going to spend a lot of time trying to just keep up with the water system. You have a strong water system, then a few guys will handle a lot of cattle. Something we also find out lately is that we thought that building big troughs will be the answer, but really the answer to having many more cattle is the flow rate. You can have a small trough, and as long as the cows, when it's their turn, your trough is full, your drinker is full, then there's no problem. The problem is when the water start going down, you will be affected by the weakest link, which is the calves, and then so on. You know, it's a very hierarchical structure on the livestock. But yeah, well, that's my stuff. And I think I'm reading here if I use mobile waters. So far, I don't use mobile waters, but we're planning on putting mobile waters very soon.
Yes, thank you. And there's one further down. Can you give more detail about other wildlife that you have seen returning to the ranch?
Yeah, we've been working with the American Bird Conservancy, with the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, with Audubon, with the Nature Conservancy as well, all U.S. conservations, and well, and also the counterparts in Mexico, and mostly on birds. And they do the transects every year, and we have a lot of birds. It's just incredible. It's an excellent indicator. Now, obviously, we have like a mule deer that has been exploding on peccary, these wild pigs, and all the predators as well, mountain lions and foxes, golden eagles, all kinds of hawks. It's just amazing. I mean, all life just explodes. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm reading another question here that it says, do you have solutions for moving cattle over large areas and provisions of water? You know, we had the most problem when we were in the middle of the road, like on the journey. When we have these 55 paddocks, we have more problems with 55 paddocks than we now. I mean, last year and this year we're building like 800 paddocks, or almost like 1,000. I think there's a size of pasture or paddock that it gives you more problems, you know, because you have to like ride the range and then grab the cattle and then move it. And nowadays, because the paddocks are much more smaller, then the cows just follow you. You don't go behind the cows, you go in front of the cows and they just follow you. So they became very tame. I mean, our cows were really very wild when we started with this stuff. They break multiple times the polywire, because usually we start, if we are getting into a new territory or new area of the ranch, we use polywire. We don't use permanent fence. It's after 2 or 3 years that we say, well, yeah, this kind of works here. Then we use we move to permanent fence. Like 80% of the ranch is permanent electric fence, and the rest is polywire that is subdivides the paddocks.
Thank you.
Well, something I want to mention here is, we try to do everything with cows at the beginning, and I mean, to me, cows need to be somehow selective to keep them healthy, and they all usually go for leaves. But when you start on these, you have a lot of stems and very little leaves. And when the cows graze and you want the cows to be happy, and I'm not supplementing, because if I were supplementing urea or something like that, protein, then I may actually be able for the cows to graze more aggressive or more even. But that was one of the reasons why we added the donkeys. I mean, another species. I mean, if we're trying to mimic nature just don't have just one animal to graze. So we added the donkeys because the donkeys cannot thrive in a very low quality. I mean, they're all together. They are not like a lead follower. And the donkeys are eating a lot of stuff that the cows are not eating. And I prefer to have a plant converted into manure than just a plant just standing there. So that's kind of the role of the donkeys. There's a study done, but with much higher rate of ratio of donkeys, where combining cows and donkeys, it improves up to 30% the performance of the cows. I'm seeing another question here. Do you have to do mineral supplements? I have tried to do that with my cows, but they don't need it. It may make a difference because we use sea salt. And to my understanding, is the only thing we give, but to my understanding, sea salt really brings a lot of minerals into place. It says here, do you have any experience on, or have you done any consultations in northern New Mexico? Yeah, we have done a lot of work in northern New Mexico. It's not that different than here. It's just that it gets a little bit cold. Instead of having the creosote, you have the sagebrush, but it's the same deal, and you have the shoya cactus also. I think yeah, we have done that, not too far from where I am.
Okay. Oh, there's another question.
Actually sheep are like the spoil animals of the ranch, probably next to the donkeys, because the donkeys are like the pets. Everybody likes to pet the donkey. But what we do with the sheep is we move the sheep, but in a whole area, and the sheep are grazing nearby where the cattle is. It's not like a perfect situation, and the sheep always are very fat, because they're much more selective, much more. They are not like in a very intensive grazing. And but that's how, and we have guard dogs, and we have a shepherd, and they go every day back to the corral. They don't stay outside. So that's kind of how I kind of play, saying, yeah, we have a plan for the sheep, and the plan is they go wherever they want, but almost, but not 100%. Yeah, there's no fence for the sheep. The shepherd and the sheep go nearby where the cows are. So I think they are moved to different corrals like every 3 months. So we try to prevent the overgrazing of sheep in just one area of the ranch. There's another question saying, how do you supply the sea salt? It's just like a granular, like a free choice, granular. The cows can eat. It's like these big rubber tanks, sorry, big rubber tires, and they can eat. I mean, they are not in blocks. They are just losing like granular sea salt.
Yes, thank you, Alejandro. I was dropped out for a moment, so I hope maybe you've already answered this question, but it's a social one. You were there right at the beginning, so what was the biggest sort of resistance that you would have come across from skeptics, and how was that resistance broken down?
Well, I think I need to start that we have two kinds of neighbors, the ones that think that we're crazy and the ones that know that we're crazy. So I'm gonna start with that, but yeah, it's kind of hard to sell these, but there are always gonna be people open to listen. And we try not to force, you know, people who are actually interested in this, they will come and ask you the way we did. Remember that when I took the holistic management training, we were 200 people and only like 4 of us did something. But then those 4 of us become like examples and also advisors. And that's how nowadays we can say that we can count over probably like 1 million hectares under some holistic regenerative ranching principles just in the state of Chihuahua. But then it's expanding to other states in Mexico. You know, because some people may need to take a look at 10 ranches before they make his first step, or 20, and we already had that one here. And then we had that in different elevations, different latitudes, and so on. So it's slow at the beginning, but then it start speeding up. And now, you know, we have other opportunities right now, like the carbon credits and things like that, that people are getting a bit more excited. Also, the conservationists are supporting some of the infrastructure. So there's some help, I mean, because people are realizing that there's a lot of benefits of the work that we do. There's what breed of guard dog? Oh, we have the Akbash. Akbash is a turkey. I don't know if you use that. Bash. And also, but that's crossed with Pyrenees. Pyrenees. So we have the cross of Akbash and Pyrenees. I mean, you can see the genetics. It's just amazing. I mean, they do what they need to do, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, the worst predator we have is the coyote, the coyotes, and they are really mean to the coyotes, are much bigger than the coyotes. So, let me see what else here. Oh, working on the best areas, heavily degraded properties. Do you have any advice of where to start first? Or shelter riparian? Yeah, we usually walk. I mean, most of us know where are still the remaining areas. So yeah, we look for those riparian areas with those meadows, those droughts, where you have like that extra runoff, that you still have some perennial grasses. Yeah, that's the places. Now, the challenge there is to connect those places. In large ranches, they're not necessarily a contiguous area that is good. So sometimes we go to the extremes, and you can end up doing some bell grazing to connect those places. And that's why it's so important for us to have a specific calving season, because we don't want the cows to be calving year round. Because what if we need to jump an area? And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm jumping areas that have bare ground. What if it did not rain there? Then I have to jump a whole area, and it's better to have all the cows about the same age, so we can actually drive them to the area that we need. So we're very, very flexible in our management. For example, This year we got 2 inches of rain in July, and we were celebrating beforehand. And then it did not rain in June. It did not rain in July. Everything that was green just dried off. And then in August, we have like 8 inches in 10 days. So it got just crazy there. And my foreman said, you know, I think we should take the cattle to the mountain range. And we went to the mountain range where there was no problem with the rain. So they stayed there for 3 months and then we went back. So always kind of adapting to the current conditions, you know, which, you know, most of the conditions are tied back to rain or lack of rain or too much rain. Where were your native grazers? Are they still present? Oh, well, on that area, based on a document that I grabbed, I mean, as recently as I think 150 years ago, we still have on that area elk and bison. Yeah, I mean, the bison went all the way from Canada all the way through northern Mexico, central Mexico. Obviously, we used to have wolves, the Mexican wolf, that they've been released recently. Not very successful, but yeah, there were bisons. They said that also the deer, we have mule deer, they migrated, and we also have antelope or pronghorns. Very few nowadays, and bighorn, the sheep, the wild sheep, and I think they all together were doing a pretty good job at the ranch. Can you explain what you think? Imagine the ranch will look like in another decade? Oh my God, that's a great question. I would love to see the ranch with more diversity, greener during the whole year. I mean, right now, we've been able to extend the green season. Let's say, just put an example, the tobosa grass, which I show you, from having very oxidized tobosa grass, almost like black color, it was just ugly, to have it a more yellowish, and then instead of the tobosa grass just staying green during the monsoon, which the tobosa grass just staying green for 3 months and they shut down because it was sick and dying. Now that tobosa grass stays and very leafy, it doesn't grow that tall, a big canopy, and then it has green at the bottom, even in winter or during the worst of the dry season. So we are accomplishing something really nice there, but I think there's much more to do. I would love to see my ranch with many, many more tall grasses, because, you know, they kind of take the same space but create more biomass. But I know that there has to be diversity of small and mid-size, and it also depends on where I am, because I have the same green sprangletop grass that grows 2 meters at the bottom. But if I go to the mountain range or the Sierra, it only grows like 1 meter. So it really depends on where you see that grass. Have you noticed any herbaceous legumes coming back? Wow, I like that question, Greg. Let me tell you something. I think sometimes we get too caught into the legumes. There's some studies done in the US for legumes, and excess of legumes is really not that good. You know, probably you all know Gabe Brown. He's been at the ranch many times. And he told me, you know, when you have an excess of legumes, what happened is that the same way that for the cows happen, that if you give cows too much protein, then that would accumulate into ammonia, and then you start having health issues like pink eye. So the best diet for us to give the cows is a mix of yellow and green. Well, the microherd, which is the microbiology in the soil, is the same way. I mean, they have to have a balanced diet. So if we're talking about the microbiology creating the aggregates, the mycorrhizal fungi, which is carbon, and you have an excess of legumes, then in order for them to keep a balanced diet, they're going to start eating the carbon. So people throwing too many legumes into their pastures, what happened is that instead of improving this soil, they start compacting the soil. So what I have seen at the ranch is, yeah, there are legumes, but I think there are more legumes more legumes in the soil that is more degraded. Once I think you start reaching more perennials, then you have a more balanced ratio between obviously many more perennial grasses and many weeds or forbs and very few legumes. So we haven't really seen an explosion of legumes.
Thank you. Okay. Oh no, there's another one that's come through. What
Well,
management strategies? Sorry, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
Yeah, well, they may not understand what I'm reading, but anyway, what management strategies have you implemented to address predation of livestock from coyotes and mountain lions? Yeah, you know, that's been kind of funny because the best protection against mountain lions is the herd, and also I think the diversity of grazing animals. If you see a bit of the story of the donkey and the horse ran away because they evolve on the steppes. The donkeys evolve on the mountain range and they need to think about what to do. They don't run away. So they are kind of aggressive. But I think for mountain lions is the herd. The mountain lion tried to separate the animal or get an isolated animal. We used to have a lot of predation from mountain lions because I think we grow them, but now they go to the neighbors. We have 30 cows here, 40 here, 20 here, and we have just one big herd. I mean, besides the bulls, one big herd. For the coyotes is, if they don't give us problems, we don't mess up with them, because if we start killing the coyotes, then we're gonna bring another family that may see. The best protection for the coyotes is for the coyotes that don't give you a problem. But yeah, sometimes we have to control the coyotes. I mean, I don't want to say that we never kill a coyote, but yeah, that's our approach. I think the herd is the best protection, and for the coyotes, it's the same coyotes that. And then, you know, it also ties back to nutrition. If a cow is well nurtured, then it will have its mind in order to protect the calf. It's really the malnutrition, is really the poor nutrition that really give us a lot of issues with predation. And it all comes back to the soil.
That was pretty cool. We are running out of time, everyone. So has anyone got any last questions that they want to ask before we wrap up? Anyone? Yes. Thank you. Jardine, you've got your hand up.
I'd love to jump in for a second and just say a big thanks, Alejandro. That was an incredible recount of your story, and it's awesome. So inspirational to hear. I just wanted to thank you, but also quickly ask, if I can, if we've got another second, what's your day look like in a really basic form? Kind of, how good is your day now compared to where it was before? Has that changed a lot for you? However it's touched you or changed for you, as well as the ranch life.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, I don't really mind if my people just finish like at 10 a.m. and they are done. I mean, they are done and they're productive. That's fine, you know. Before, when I went to with my dad to the ranch, we rode like 10 hours a day, and then we were kind of riding the whole ranch because the cows were spread all over. Now when my dad goes to the ranch and then we go and everything is just one place, and then my dad can walk among the cows and take a look at the cows and pretty much see most of the cows. And then he asked me, what is next? Well, I think we're done. What are we going to be doing? Or just something else? So I think it gives you really, I mean, some people are concerned about time-wise, moving the cows once or twice a day, but it really gives you a more quality time with your family, with your workers, with everybody. So yeah, we really like it the way it is now.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Okay. Chris, you were told to stay in English. I can't understand that. So, but anyway, thank you very much, Alejandro. That was just amazing, and it was so inspirational just listening to where you've come from, where you're going, and yes, we're very grateful for you for sharing that with us. Okay, if there's no more questions, we will wrap it up. Thank you everybody for joining us online. No time, but I would like to hear more regarding
epigenetics. Yeah, that's quite a great topic, you know, because as I explained tonight, is your herd need to help you and not really dragging you. And you know, sometimes we as ranchers, and it happened to me, that we dream about buying that perfect bull that will fix all our problems, but we realize that actually buying a good genetic, you know, a good bull or something, it's just the beginning of a journey. And then it's the selection that you're going to be doing there and the calling that it will take you to wherever you want based on your goals. So epigenetics is really the thing that you will be developing those even well. And then let's talk about the other side. You can get a very good bull, and then you can actually downplay, or you can actually get the genetics even worse. And that's why we love diversity in everything, but in genetics we actually are looking for uniformity. And nobody is gonna really sell you a bull or a genetics that will fit exactly your ranch and your management. You have to develop those genetics. Oh, short answer, but
no, thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that is about it. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming online. We appreciate it, and I hope that you have got a lot out of this. That is all from me. Thank you very much once again, Alejandro. That was just amazing, and hopefully we will see you over in Australia sometime soon.
thank you very much. It was a very nice time spending with you.